Hello, my friends. I've had at least 3 or 4 of you just this week unprompted tell me I should start a travel blog because you've been wanting to know what's been going on with me. So I figured this would be an easy way for everybody to keep up on things. For the people closest to me, they know what's been going on with me along the way. It has been a pretty crazy past 5 months and may have seemed out of the blue for a lot of you that aren't up to date with me on a day-to-day basis. To catch you up to speed, if you're not sure what's going on because I haven't been posting, I have been nomading for the past 5 months. I decided back in November to sell all of my worldly possessions. I gave myself 2 weeks to get rid of my apartment and bought a ticket to Bali, thinking I was going to backpack and live there. Realistically, I don't actually like backpacking. It's actually very difficult to live out of a backpack and have 3 or 4 shirts and a couple shorts to live out of and carry it around with you. I also had no idea that Bali is just an island of mountains that are way steeper than the ones you find in Pennsylvania, and definitely not like the flatlands of Florida. So backpacking realistically wasn't a thing because I couldn't even walk outside uphill for 5 minutes without anything on my back. So I've been figuring things out as I go along. This video blog is also going to be the same thing for me. I am realizing that with life, it's not important to get things perfect the right time. It's really just to start. And I feel like life has been leading me down that path ever since I got a pretty clear sign that it was time for me to switch things up with what I had. So before I left, I was living in St. Petersburg, Florida. It is this really amazing hippie beach town, really close to Tampa. I had moved there 2 years before that, away from all of my friends and family solo. It was my very first big leap trip, and it was scary and it was hard, but I am so glad that I did it because it was also one of the most rewarding things that I've done. And I do believe it was a stepping stone for this. I do have a couple other videos with some of the stuff that was going on that prompted all of this and this major life change that I didn't even see coming. I was running a pet sitting business. I was working with a catering bartending company. So for work, I literally hung out with animals and slept over at people's houses that were nicer than mine. And I served people free drinks at weddings. So it was all fun. But there was a life shift that I couldn't see coming. Everything all at once seems to collapse in and of itself. I thought that I had things completely figured out. The business was going well. I was making enough money. I had all of these friends. I was running kickball teams. I was going to the beach on a regular basis, which was my dream for years. So everything imploding at once was unexpected, to say the least. The good thing is that at least at this point, I was about 2 to 3 years into my spiritual journey. I've been into self-improvement for a long time, probably over a decade or so. I love growing. I love becoming the best person that I can be. And so those are like the audiobooks and the podcasts that I'm listening to. And I realized that I was doing all of the right things. I was waking up and doing yoga in the morning. I was doing my gratitude on a daily basis. I had this work-life balance and I was very intentionally building this life. And so had this happened a few years prior, I probably would have been freaking out a lot more and thinking it was some kind of punishment from the universe. But I knew that I was doing the right things. And so I knew that everything was happening for me. And I just needed to figure out what it was. To recap, part of what was going on, I had moved into this apartment and it definitely had mold in it, but I didn't realize it because it was behind the walls. So I started getting very, very sick for months, and nobody could figure out what it was because these symptoms didn't seem to line up with anything. Like, I was literally hospitalized and told that it was dehydration, which it wasn't because I felt like I was having heart attacks and like aneurysms or strokes at the same time. It just, you don't do that unless you're like hiking in the desert without water for days. And sure, I wasn't drinking enough water, but not to the point where I should be in the hospital fearing for things. It was a long process for anybody who's been sick. One of the hardest parts is the diagnosis phase because you're just not feeling well and then you have no idea what it is. So it eventually gets to a point where you almost don't even care what it is. You just want to know at the end of it. So, like, if I have cancer, if I have something else, I would rather just like know what it is so I can start working on it and not feel like this. So I was getting insane headaches in the apartment. There were points where I couldn't breathe. There was a weekend when I couldn't walk. Like, literally, it hurt to stand on my legs. It just, the symptoms were insane, and I was getting all of this testing done and going into all these doctors and being told, unremarkable, unremarkable, you're fine, everything is normal, everything is normal. Everything is not fucking normal if I cannot walk. So, I talked to all of these people, got all of these tests done, and eventually, through friends of friends, I was connected to the holistic community who did help me come up with the diagnosis and told me I needed to stop living in my apartment. And what happens? I move out of my apartment and bing, I feel better. It's insane how that worked out. So that in of itself was a whirlwind because in Florida, mold is very common, and it's also a state where landlords have more rights than tenants do. Improving mold when it's not visible is very difficult. So I was literally couch surfing in friends' apartments for a while. So I was very blessed to have people that would take me in, and I even had a friend of a friend's apartment who was traveling abroad, and I just got their space for a month. But it also was very disconcerting because I really loved my apartment and my home. I put a lot of love into it, and it was my space. And even though I was safe, I felt homeless and disconnected. I felt like I didn't have a place of my own. And it also made me feel like I was a burden to others because even though I like to be independent, I had to rely on other people at this point. And it does get hard when you're not sure what the solution is. So that's where I was when all of this started happening. I just started getting inklings that I should move to Bali. I had never been to Bali. I didn't really know anything about it, other than it sounded like a cool place that people had told me about and that it was spiritual. And yeah, I just sat with that for a little while. During this time, Florida had two hurricanes back to back, so I also had to move my butt out of Florida for weeks. So I went to visit friends in North Carolina and then friends and family up in Pennsylvania when the second one hit. And so the town where I was underwater and was in its reconstruction phases during this time as well. So like not only did I not have my apartment, but this place where I'd moved and handpicked out of the whole country was also just not doing great. It felt like I was getting definitive signs to leave, and I hadn't plans for it, but I'm starting to realize that when I'm getting these hints, it's important to listen. I had wanted to nomad for a while. I didn't picture it being like this. I had been writing that I'd wanted to travel more and I wanted more adventure, and I think I almost manifested all of this because the universe has a way of delivering things to us that we ask for, but usually not in the ways that we expect. So during the time, it was scary, but again, I knew that this was happening for me. So since that time, it is now April, and I am not in Bali. I'm actually in Manali, India, in the Himalayas. It is gorgeous with mountains. And I have been living out of the country for 5 months, out of hotels, hostels, homestays, figuring out what this path is and why I was placed on it. So none of this is perfect. I'm not sure exactly where this is going to lead, but I am sure that I'm doing the right things because I am listening to my guts. So I want to start some of these videos by going back and going over some of the cool stories that I had. I went to Bali for a couple months, then Egypt, then India. So I'll see if I can add pictures to some of these and just share the experiences to keep you up to date. I am also learning a lot about different places and cultures and am figuring out so many travel tips. So I'll see if I can throw some of those in there too for you. But yep, hope you're all good and thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.